Hello and welcome to the SI5 Improvement Podcast, where we bring to you supreme intelligence to self-improvement. With high performance from everyday people, because I truly believe that every single one of you has advice to give, value to share, that the listeners from this podcast can take into our own life, apply and improve. Because when you improve you improve your life. So welcome to today's episode. We have a guest on the episode today, Sean Howell is going to join us. And Sean's got a success story in terms of, I think he's found his IKIGAI. Now, an IKIGAI is a Japanese term for finding your true purpose, your calling in life. And it involves three things. The first thing is that you find something that you enjoy doing. The second thing is that you do something that you're good at. And the third thing is doing something that the world needs and that the world can benefit from. So something you enjoy, something you're good at, something the world needs. When you find those three things, that's when you found your IKIGAI and your purpose. And I believe that Sean has found this in cycling, off-road cycling, and he's used this to grow a business, which he's going to talk about how he had the idea, how he's taken action in making that happen, because there's many of us in the world who will have an idea and we'll say to ourselves, oh, I could do that as a business, but we never actually take action on that. And Sean has, and he's going to explain how he's done that and how he's also helping what the world needs in helping people to improve their lives through what he's offering as a business. So Sean, I really appreciate your time in taking the time to come on my brand new podcast. Welcome to the episode.
Well, Harry, what an introduction. It's, well, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, it's a real honour to be asked to come on the podcast, Harry. And you know, we've the way we've met, and obviously what's led to today's conversation is, you know, we've got a lot of things, a lot of synergies involved between the two of us, a lot of parallel stuff in terms of our own stories. So very excited. And this is, you know, my first podcast ever. I've listened to loads, you know, big fan of podcasts, but this is a real honor for me to be here today. And I'm glad you explained the slightly big, unusual word, IKIGAI, because you might have to do that a little bit more for this podcast if you're going to throw any more big words at me, because, you know, I'm just a simple mountain biker. I need those words explaining to me. But yeah, no, interesting Japanese word there. So looking forward to it. Here we go.
It's all about purpose, isn't it? I mean, that's you know, I'm trying to do that through this podcast, is trying to do something that I enjoy, first of all, something that I'm good at. Hopefully, time will tell with that one, but and doing something that I think the world needs, and we all need some guidance and advice, and we can take this from everyday people like me, like you, and like the other guests on this podcast. So that's what it's about, really.
Good stuff. Yeah.
And I know you're a busy man, so I do appreciate your time. You've just, obviously you've got your business to run, and you've just moved house as well, I believe.
Keep pinching myself, really. I've just moved to a little house, which when I first left my corporate world with a steady salary, you know, and to try and earn a living out of riding bikes and taking people out on tours, you know, some of my closest friends and family always said, you're mad trying to do that. And, you know, what about the future and getting a house and etc. And all those things that the societal challenges and conformity throw at us, you know, cultural expectations. And I didn't really listen to them, really. I never thought I'd, you know, the stage of life I was at that time, I never thought, you know, I was going day by day. I didn't think buying a house was going to be on the radar for a very long time. And here we are. I've just moved in 2.5 weeks ago with my wife, Rachel, and in a location that is perfect for the business and is what we want. You know, it's about being free and being in a place we want to be and have that choice and freedom to be able to choose where we want to live and live our lives, really, which is, we're back on the first run of the ladder in terms of the property world, but we're very happy. We're in a perfect location. And so I've put my paintbrushes down this morning. I've done a lot of emails. I've taken some bookings this morning from the business. So that's the great thing about modern technology, and I've embraced that in terms of the business to try and allow me to paint in one hand. The business runs and takes bookings on without the other hand, it happens, automatically. So yeah, busy. However, it is the height of our season now. We've got loads of stuff going on, but these things are important. Like I said to you before, the way we've met and the reasons why we're sitting here now is that passion, those synergies that we have that we're going to talk about a bit later. So there's always time for this sort of thing, and again, very proud moment to be part of my first podcast with you, Harry, and helping you along your journey. So the hundreds and thousands of listeners that are already tuning in, I understand I'm on number 10. Is this number 10 on the...
The episode number 10, I believe, yeah.
So this will be trending soon because it's number 10, all over Twitter and no, I shouldn't call it that, X, and Spotify and all that good stuff. So watch out, all you big guns out there on the podcast, where Harry's coming to get you. So
exactly,
number 10, and there'll soon be episode 100 knocking on the top 10 podcast list. So there we go.
And that's what you said as well about, like, other people have this. There's an expectation of what you should be doing in life, and you have to trust your gut instinct, don't you? Like you've done with your business. People will say, "Oh, no, don't do that. It's too risky," or or some people even, like, they put doubts in your mind and they start to try and bring you down a peg or two by putting these niggling thoughts that you're not good enough. And you just have to trust yourself, have some self-belief, and think, I want to do this. It's something I enjoy, something I feel like I should be doing. And it's about trying to get rid of the doubts and just going forth, isn't it?
Definitely, yeah, 100%. That's definitely one of the things I will always live by now. So getting on with it. And there's never a good time and all those good things to do anything,
So, Sean, going back to this IKIGAI, the first thing is something you enjoy doing. When did you first start cycling?
Well, like a lot of us back in the day, if we can remember back when we can, we've learned to walk, we're running around as toddlers, and then I can remember learning to getting on my first bike and having the stabilizers taken off as probably a 4 or 5 year old on the local recreation park back in the mid 80s. Cycling featured heavily as a kid. It was what we did as we all do growing up with bikes. However, football was a massive thing for me. I was brought up in a football mad family, so as I was kicking a ball before I could probably walk or run, and then that was obviously well ingrained in me. And cycling was always something I did as a kid. Got me to the park to meet my friends to play football. Got me to school and back every day. I couldn't wait to do my cycling proficiency. It gave me maximum freedom. My mum and dad were so happy that it was not part of the school run that they had to do, and it gave me ultimate freedom to go and hang out with my friends, play football, and get to school. But very much it's always been there, part of my life through my childhood and teens and stuff, and right way through to my 20s. But it predominantly became a form of commuting, a form of transport, and I did that right through my corporate career as well, in terms of using the bike to get to work and back. So looking back, until I found off-road cycling, straight mountain biking, it was predominantly for commuting to school, to play football, and to work, really.
And so what made you, like, obviously you say football was a real passion of yours. Was there a point where you gave up the football to do more cycling, or did you balance the two? Or
initially I tried to, because I had this goal that I thought I was always going to, match what my brother did. My brother's a little bit older than me. He was playing football was many times a week at quite a high level, at an amateur level, into his mid 40s. He was a bit older than me, and always a bit of a, you looked up to your bigger brother, don't you? Blah, blah, blah. And it was like, I was always going to do that, always going to make it to that. And then it was my friends that I grew up with at school, and I still see them. They're still a big part of my life. We've known each other well over 40 years now. Mountain biking is quite hard on your face. Yeah, it was one of those guys in our late 20s that secretly was mountain biking. We got together on a Friday night, played a game of poker and had some pizza with about 6 or 7 of us. And it just came out after a couple of beers that he'd been mountain biking with some colleagues at work, and we all sort of spat our beer out and said, "Well, why didn't you told us? Because we would have." We've got some mountain bikes. We used to do a little bit back in our teenage years, when we used to muck about. Why didn't you tell us? And because he wasn't one of our sort of football heavy friends, he just thought that we would, rib him and not be interested. So he didn't tell us. And then literally 4 days later, we all agreed he was going to take us out for a ride up on the downs behind us, because we were all born and bred near Brighton, with the South Downs on our doorstep. So within 3 or 4 days of that game of poker, we were all digging our old mountain bikes out of the sheds and going up on the trails that we used to ride when we were, teenagers. So that was the start of it, really. I was 28 or 29, which was the moment where football started to ramp down and mountain biking took over my life, because I just got my hooks. It got its hips into me on that night after the poker game, and I haven't looked back since. Really, it's just football's gone, almost non-existent, and mountain biking has ramped up to a point where I started a business, and I'm still doing it, which is grand.
Yeah, it's funny because I started hiking around about my late 20s, I think, and before that, it's funny how we've got the same age where we've started to turn to cycling, hiking, quite similar in terms of getting out in nature. And you say you rode on the South Downs. I've done the South Downs Way.
That's right. Yeah,
love the area, especially for cycling. You've got lots of cyclists on there as well. And so when you actually started cycling in the nature and in around the South Downs, how did that make you feel mentally?
Well, it just brings you out of yourself, really. It takes you away. As soon as you get away from the town or the village and get up on the hills and in the forest, it's again, it's nothing groundbreaking what I'm saying, but you just forget about all that noise and clutter that's in your life. You're up on the hills, whether it's on your own or with your friends, it's the best time. Doesn't have to involve 2 wheels, but in my point of view, 2 wheels is a lot of fun. Doesn't have to be extreme, but it brings back all those memories of riding bikes and why you ride bikes, really. But in terms of getting out in nature, you get that half an hour, 2 hours, whole day, half day, couple of days of just escaping, the modern world, really. And that's the core of it, really.
Like you say, it's the pressures of life, the hamster wheel of life, working, commitments with family, and problems that we face on a daily basis. And one word you said there in how it made you feel is you forget these things. When you get out there, as you're either cycling or walking. And do you know what? Football's got a similarity to this, because when I don't know if you realize, when you're actually playing football, you forget everything else.
Yeah, 100%.
You're just focused on the football. Yeah. And I find that's the same when you're out there in nature, is that you're just focused on being in nature, and you forget your problems, you forget your family issues, you forget all about work. And you need to forget this sometimes. You can't keep on bombarding your brain all the time with all these pressures and getting stressed and overwhelmed. Sometimes you just need to stop and take yourself away.
Totally agree. Football, gym, anything that people can do to release themselves for a couple of hours a week or a couple of hours a day, whatever they can do. It's a start, isn't it? It is exactly what I just said. It's a release. It gets you out there. And I can remember all the millions of games I used to play. You're in the moment. You're just focused on that game and playing with your mates, or trying to compete in a team or whatever. Any form of passion, hobby. It doesn't have to be active. The active side is obviously the bonus of the physical and the mental benefits, but any form of hobby that you keep putting off, I love people that have hobbies where they go to music shows or whatever, or they dedicate a massive part of their hobby or their passion to whatever it is, sci-fi or collecting stuff. They've got a passion. It gets them away. It frees them and it gets them out there, and that's to be commended as well, I think.
Yeah, that's a very good point, actually, because I always focus things like this on the actual physical activity as well. But actually, it doesn't have to be that, does it? It can just be something that helps you just to tune out of life. And that can be any hobby, really, can't it? So it just emphasises actually the need to have a hobby, really.
Yeah. And, we live in a time and a place now where if you look what's out there to do, there's so many things you can do, and this is why a lot of these hobbies and these crafts and these other things you can do are actually combining with the outdoors, aren't they? Outdoor cinemas, festivals where you go, and it's not just about listening to music. You can do arts and craft at the festival with the family. You can get involved. You can do bushcraft, and the overarching thing there is that it's about getting people doing stuff, but doing it outside in nature where we belong, Yeah.
So, Sean, you found something that you enjoyed in the mountain biking or outdoors cycling. What the next part was finding something that you're good at. Now, who knows if you were actually good at it or not? So, who was it, or what gave you the idea to then take something that you enjoy and think that you could have a business out of this?
Well, very sliding door moment, very serendipitous. I suppose conversation with those same school friends that I mentioned earlier. It was one evening, it was a Wednesday night down our local pub, and we were all out just getting together, having our usual couple of beers in the evening, and it was the same group that I've grown up with. It's the same group that we played lots of football with over the decades, and the same group that we happened to fall in love with mountain biking. And at that stage, we'd been biking seriously for about 4 or 5 years. Anyway, I went up to the bar to help one of them get their round in, as you do, and he just turned around to me. Neil is his name, if you're listening, and you will be listening later, because I know you love this sort of stuff. So thank you, Neil. Neil just turned around to me and just said, "Have you ever thought about doing any qualifications?" And I went, in what? And he said, "Mountain biking." I said, "No." "Why?" He said, "Well, we've had a great 4 or 5 years, haven't we? We've done some good stuff." And I said, yeah, it's been amazing, hasn't it? It's been awesome. And he said, "Well, all we've got to do is turn up. You literally do everything. You organise our local rides to get us out during the week and at the weekends. You've fixed all our bikes. You do all the route planning. You book all the accommodation. You get us all together for the weekend trips. So if it wasn't for you, really, none of us would be on this journey." So I basically grabbed a tray of beers and went, "Yeah, thanks for saying that. That's pretty cool." Anyway, went back down to the table, and a couple of hours later, it was my round. So I went up to the bar, and another friend from the same group, from the same table, came up, stood next to me. This one's Lee. This is for you, Lee. Thank you, Lee. So Lee basically turned around and said exactly the same thing to me at the bar on the same night. And the two of them, Neil and Lee, hadn't been speaking. They hadn't pre-planned that discussion. So again, sat back down, finished our evening. That morning at work, I spent the whole day Googling mountain biking qualifications to become a guide, essentially, and eventually found that British Cycling do all the qualifications that you need. And that was, I believe, late 2012 or early 2013 when that conversation happened. And then by the time I found the right qualifications to do, and at the time I'd committed to saving up to do my first round the world travel trip, if you like, that I got my first qualifications in late 2013 from memory, before I was heading off to South America for some traveling. So yeah, if it wasn't for those two friends, Neil and Lee, then we wouldn't be sitting here now, to be honest. And it was Lee that also was the one that was secretly mountain biking and gave out his secret around that game of poker. So yeah, if it wasn't for Lee, I suppose, then again, we wouldn't be sitting here.
So you went and got your mountain guide qualification.
Yeah.
So you took action on that. And then what did you do then to actually then form a business and get the business up and going from scratch?
Thankfully, where my corporate career took me, I used to be a mechanical engineer, a tool maker, so very much hands-on in the workshop. But 2 or 3 years, I think that was 2012. Was it 2012? Yeah, 2012. I was with the same company, a local company, and I got convinced to go away from the tools and go into the office and do a slightly different role, which involved a bit of account management, a bit of business development, a bit of marketing, bit of involvement with the website. And I went from being a guy that used to make stuff out of metal with his hands, on the tools, to sitting in an office, using computers every day, learning about marketing, going to meetings, doing all that business development stuff. And at the time, this was kind of before that serendipitous conversation with Neil and Lee. I didn't know it, but I was obviously in sponge mode. I was taking it all in, and my role, the office role, gave me exposure to so many different elements of business. I was having to sell stuff. I was listening to customers. I was developing relationships. All that stuff, I had no idea was basically going to give me a massive foundation to start Marmalade once I had that chance conversation with the boys down the pub. So again, I've got a lot to thank for that role, for the people that convinced me or tried to talk to me and say, look, Sean, I know you're happy doing what you're doing, but why don't you go for this role? This is be perfect, and I took that opportunity. So we're having this conversation. I'm thinking, do you know what? It's also down to that conversation. And, a life lesson, I suppose, that I was very guilty of in the first 29 years of my life was I was so blinkered by football in that bubble. And I have no regrets about that previous life, but I barely or rarely took opportunities that came to me, I suppose. So mountain biking freed me a little bit. Those colleagues that were convincing me to go for that different role, I went for that different role. It steered me on a different career path. And I suppose a couple of years, 18 months before Marmalade became an idea, I was learning new stuff. I was learning about marketing. I was learning about client relationships, building business. Well, not building business, but engaging in business and that sort of thing, and a little bit getting exposure to looking after things that we were selling on the website and stuff like that. So it gave me little bits of skill and little bits of experience of all, the world of business, which then was the perfect foundation. So I suppose, again, I took the opportunity of taking that role. Then the sliding doors moment of my friends having that conversation with me. And I suppose I didn't know it then, but the stars were all aligned. I felt like I had a good foundation to go and get the qualifications. And because I then had the confidence that I'd already done a little bit of website work, I understood a little bit about that. And I wasn't scared to start my own website.
So there's three things I've just jotted down as you were talking there, which I think are valuable lessons for everybody. Is the first thing was you had you had good friends who supported you, and that's important because we can have friends or family in our life that they're not actually supportive, and we need to be careful who we surround ourselves with, because if you've got people around you who are going to encourage you and remind you of what you're good at, and be there behind you to push you forward, and they want you to achieve.
Totally.
I think that's really important, because if you'd have had two friends, who just didn't really care about you and were quite negative, they wanted you to stay in their bubble, they didn't want you to venture too far or whatever. Yeah, they wouldn't have even had that conversation with you in the pub. They would have just, do you know what I mean? They wouldn't have even thought about saying that and pushing you to sort of like do something like that.
Yeah.
So that's really important. And the second thing is you took opportunity when it came. There's a lot of doors that we all have in our lives that we think are all closed, but when one slightly opens, we're sort of too scared to walk through it. We just think, oh no, I don't know what's on the other side of that door, so I'm comfortable where I am now. So we don't go through it. Like you said, you were very hands-on, and then you were finding yourself in an office job. And it's a complete opposite to hands-on, isn't it? Sitting down in an office.
Totally, yeah.
but you had there was an opportunity, and you went ahead and took that opportunity. And I think once you take opportunities, these doors, it takes you places that you didn't think that you would ever go. And then when you say the stars aligned, it's not necessarily the stars, it's actually you've made that happen by taking that opportunity on yourself.
Yeah, it's a great thing to look back and reflect. Again, this is why this conversation is super important to me, because it gives me the chance to focus on the story, the journey, what we've created here at Marmalade. The people we've met, the opportunities we've taken, etc. And until you do it, until you get on your own journey, X amount of time down the line, you will look back and go, we're only here because I took that opportunity, or I took that course, I found time to go and do and be part of that club. I was asked to volunteer and I went along to that. I did that. I found time to do it. And then you surround yourself with people that love that sport or love that hobby. And then, yes, it's about the support you get from those, and it's finding the time, taking the opportunities, not saying no to, especially in the early days, don't say no to too many times, because those opportunities or those offers don't come around all the time. So, yeah, me changing roles, which completely came out of nowhere, and taking that opportunity. But I've got to thank my colleagues. I was listening to the High Performance podcast the other day, and Arnold Schwarzenegger was on it. Big fan I was of the 80s and 90s movies, maybe not so much now. And he was saying that he hates the term self-made. And I thought, okay, interesting. And he explained it. He said, you're never self-made, because there's always people giving you ideas. There's always people giving you support. You don't know it at the time, but it's down to you to open your eyes and take one of those opportunities and take those helping hands. Therefore, you're never self-made, because there's always people, or always a scenario before you did something that's prompting you, pushing you. And again, my colleagues, I can remember two of them, Glenn and Paul. Now we're having this conversation. They were the ones every single day, go for that role, go for that role. Yeah, honestly, it wasn't just a simple throwaway comment. It was a good weeks long of badgering. Yeah, so if it wasn't for them to badger me, I wouldn't have gone and learned and been that sponge to absorb all that great, I suppose, exposure to how a business operates and all those other great things that has then, given me the confidence to do something like I have. So yeah.
Yeah, and I've heard that exact podcast as well on the High Performance with Arnold Schwarzenegger about being self-made, and it just makes you realise that you have to take action yourself, and then you do need other people. And
yeah,
it is a team game, isn't it? Everything we do in life is a team game.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. No, and the first choice is the hardest one to make, isn't it? And again, that's not groundbreaking news for anyone, but it's the fact. It's the fact of life. Whatever you want to get out or do or achieve, you have to take that first step.
Yeah, it's all about pushing yourself out of your comfort zone initially, because like I said about opening those doors, you don't know what's on the other side of it. You might fail. You might open the door, miss the step, and fall flat on your face.
That's right.
But what you're going to do, you're going to pick yourself up. It's a bad experience. You dust yourself off. You step back into where you were, and then you go for another door, and you learn something from it. You learn that next time you open the door, you'll make sure there's not a step there to be missed. You kind of just learn things as you go along. So we learn from the failure, but that then leads that multiple failures can then lead to a success. And if you don't open those doors and learn from those failures and then take it into your next opportunity, you're giving yourself more chance of making it work, because you've taken the lessons from the doors that haven't worked. And then so you went on from that and you created your own website. How did you then get that website out there and market this to draw people's attention, to actually start people coming on your events?
Well, I was one of those rare people that, especially in my friendship group and family, that I was very anti-social media, never had any profile on Facebook, nothing, never went on it, blah, blah, blah. But again, I knew through, that role that I was doing, that different role, that we have to engage in all types of marketing these days, digital, online, social media is very important. And so therefore, I had to bury the hatchet, if you like, step over the line and embrace the modern world of digital and online marketing, really. So again, I was very lucky. Well, not very lucky. You make your own luck, don't you, in life? But I think I just did what I can with the website, got it live, read some blogs, spoke to people, watched lots of tutorials on trying to optimize the website based on my skill level and budget, which was zero, to be honest. Launched it and then just used social media, mainly Facebook, if I'm brutally honest, because the numbers stack up. They've still got a massive pull, especially back in 2016. Put some events out there, event posts, and just started marketing it, really. I did all my own marketing to start with, so bearing in mind, I'm not a particularly creative person in that stuff, graphic design or words or pictures. I had no budget to spend on professional photographer to come along, nothing like that. So it was all done on my iPhone, whatever it was, 5 pictures, and thankfully social media done its thing. It must have got it out there because 8 people booked up for the first ride, and they actually turned up as well. We went for a brilliant ride, and that's what launched the business in 2016. So again, I can't sit here and say I've found a new golden ticket or nugget that's under a different stone that I've lifted up. I just used the advice and what was already been out there for launching a business and marketing it, really. I just did it, essentially. I just put it out there. And
that's another vital lesson, is you'd never used social media before, but you recognize that that's the way the world's going now. And there's a lot of people that get left behind in life, especially as you get older, because you refuse to change and adapt to the way the world is nowadays. And accepting that change happens in life, it's not a negative thing. And a lot of us view it as a negative. There's many people who, from an older generation, who are looking at social media now and going, and they're viewing it in a bad way. They're viewing mobile phones in a bad way. And they can be if you overuse it and you're getting addicted to the dopamine hit that you get from all the likes and stuff like that. But there's also some massive benefits. I know a few people that don't even want to use WhatsApp because they're so used to text messaging. They don't want anything to do with WhatsApp. And by refusing to accept this change, you're actually limiting yourself from moving forward with life and with the world. And you're going to suffer the neglect from that because you're not involved in things. So accepting that change like you did, and going on social media and accepting that is a way of marketing what you're trying to do, that's a massive lesson for anybody. That you might not agree with certain aspects of it, but you understand that you might have to do that to get your business out. So Sean, you've obviously put the marketing out there then, and so you've got these 8 people that have turned up on day one, which is a brilliant result, because I was listening to, I don't know if do you know Joe Wicks?
Yes.
So he posted about where he started, and he used to go outside a train station with a big banner that said, "Come and join me over the park this weekend for a workout session." And he stood there all day at the station and handed out all these leaflets. And then he went to the park and no one turned up. So he started doing press-ups and sit-ups on his own. And then the next week he went to the station again. No one turned up again. And I think like 6 times no one turned up. But he carried on going to that park on his own and doing his thing. And then eventually, like you said, 1 person joins you. Then 2 people join you. And then they bring their friends. And before you know it, he started something. So for you to get 8 people turn up to your bike cycling event on the first one, that's a great result. And so then from there,
Thank you.
It's become obviously a regular thing. More people have come, word spread. You've then grown your business, and now you're obviously helping so many people to get out there cycling, out in nature, improving themselves. Have you got an example of, like, one or two examples of how you've really helped an individual who, because it, like we say about the IKIGAI, you found something you enjoy,
Yeah.
you found something now you're good at that your friends reminded you of because you organised all the events and you got everything booked and arranged. So you've got something you're good at, something you enjoy, now something that benefits the world. So how has this benefited someone? Have you got an example of an individual who's...
Yeah, it's various levels to this, really, of the examples I suppose I can give. The one that's the obvious one that a lot of people feed back over the pint at the end of the ride is that, they're busy. And what Marmalade provides is we've got, a suite of experiences, different types of rides in different areas at weekends and during the week, whenever, that they can now follow through the newsletter or just Google or see the events on Facebook or whatever, or through Instagram. And they know that they can follow it, they can book up on it, and they know when they arrive, it's a welcoming it's a safe environment. Everyone's there for the same thing. There's no judgment. There's no pace set, and it gives people the ability in their busy lives to book onto something, come along, and be free to just be in the moment in terms of riding their bikes in the woodland, on the downs, wherever it may be. They trust the fact that we're experts. We've been doing this. We're passionate. We know the areas. We've created routes that are not going to be rubbish. They are, on the day, we change it a little bit. If it's bad weather, we know the trails that don't hold up very well in the weather, so we adapt it. So these guys and girls who are very busy, whether it's family or work, will turn up for 3 hours or for the whole day, knowing that when they come out with us, it's a guaranteed great time. They're not going to waste their time. They're not going to go out on their own. They want to be with other people because they enjoy being out with other people, and they do go out for rides on their own. So that's, I think, the first one. We just provide that nice, safe environment where they know they're going to get a great day out. Because if they go out on their own in a new area, the chances are it's a good 50-50 chance that they could get lost, pick all the wrong trails, and just have a rubbish time or average time. So that's the obvious one. That's the easy one to do. There's examples that I've met, and it's not necessarily we've met them at different starts of their or different stages of their journey. Where I can remember one guy, Steve, this was early days. This was about 2018, 2019. We met on the South Downs. He wanted a one-to-one, and his story was just, again, in terms of getting off your backside and doing something about your life or what you've just been told, this guy was the first probably hammer blow to me that made me realise, wow, this is the first person that I've ever come across. And Marmalade's given me that opportunity, because without Marmalade, I wouldn't have met Steve. And he's basically sitting there telling me that, now, sorry, listeners, if I've got some of the medical stuff, I don't have this condition. I don't know too much about it. But again, if I say the wrong things or, blah, blah, blah. But basically he turned around and said he was told by his doctors and whatnot that he was on a journey of basically killing himself due to his lifestyle choices in terms of the level of diabetes that he had. He had maximum, very extreme levels of the condition. And he's got a family. He's got a dog. He's got lovely grandchildren. And they basically turned around to him and said, we can't do anything more for you. You're killing yourself. And he took up, now I don't hold this against you, Steve, but he took up road cycling with his buddies that he knew a long, long time. Okay. They just went out. They just got active. Steve at the time would have been late 50s. And within a few weeks, he'd already lost a bit of weight, of course, because he's got active. And I think it was less than 6 months. He went back for a routine checkup, because obviously he's on the extreme levels. He goes for regular checkups to make sure, whatever, with the medical world. And cycling had changed him so much and gave him a new lease of life that he'd actually cured himself of diabetes. So he was told he was going to kill himself. They couldn't do anything more for him. He doesn't have it anymore. Completely manages his life, doesn't need to worry about it anymore, providing he stays on the current journey of the current lifestyle choices. So I met Steve through that, and he told me that within the first sort of 10 minutes. So I spent the whole 3 hours obviously thinking, wow, what a story. And Steve comes back quite regularly. We see him at least 3 or 4 times a year. Again, he maintains it. He came over from road cycling to mountain biking because the roads got too busy. He wanted to find a club or a business like Marmalade to come and do some skills coaching and get some and ride with other people and start to go out in a group and ride in different areas, because his mates who he started that journey on stayed on the road and he fell out with the road because it became too dangerous. So Marmalade started, it got a little bit established, and obviously social media did its thing, and it, thank you Instagram, thank you Facebook, they put us on his feed. And so we then gave him that vehicle. We gave him the opportunity that he can go and ride different areas. He can meet up at a weekend after a long day at work and meet people of a similar age and a similar interest. So I suppose we've helped Steve on his second part of his journey to really get outside of his local woods. That's all he rides, really, away and in a safe environment where he can explore different parts of the national park and the different parts of the area of the country that we do our trips in. So, and without mountain biking, without cycling, without Marmalade, I would never have met Steve. So it's all linked, but that's an example of someone that, through outdoor activity and through taking action and taking responsibility and not just expecting the world to sort it out for him, whether that's the NHS or, he got off his backside and, and got active. It could have been anything. It could have been archery, could have been bowling, but he got active, and my journey and his journey came together. And then recently, I'll try and keep this one a bit quicker. But Sonia, who lives on the Isle of Wight, she was basically she signed up to do the South Downs Way with her friend in May this year, our 3-day trip. And the last couple of years, Sonia's been on a hell of a journey with her own health. She was in a mobility scooter, and thankfully, her consultant had told her that, she needs to try and get active and maybe cycling is her thing. So she went from basically being in a mobility scooter to getting a bicycle, which then she rode up and down the promenade with her friend on the Isle of Wight. And then that grew and got bigger. And then they started to explore with with their e-bikes, because that's the great thing about electric mountain bikes. It is accessible now for everyone, regardless of your background, your age, or whether you're carrying an injury or anything. And before long, they've progressed in their cycling that they wanted to sign up to some trips and get off the island and explore other areas. This is the door that outdoor activity gives you. It feeds that what's next? What's the next adventure? Where can we go next? And they'd realised that they got to the point where they had got a little bit bored of the beautiful Isle of Wight, and they thought, so they started Googling, let's go on a trip. And again, I suppose the hard work that we've put into the website and thankfully Google put us in front of Sonia when she was Googling, and we met Sonia, and she did the South Downs Way. She completed the South Downs Way. And bearing in mind, I think it was either 2 years or a year ago, it was basically the anniversary of her taking cycling up. And less than a year or 2 years, sorry, I can't remember, was when she got a special Marmalade mug for completing the South Downs Way. So again, great example of again, you could argue maybe she was lucky. She got access to a doctor that encouraged her to be active and not just kept throwing drugs or whatever at her or appointments. So she's not self-made. She was encouraged, but then she took, just like Steve, she took that opportunity to take that journey. And then our paths or our trails have crossed. and we've just, I suppose, accelerated. We've given them another opportunity to go, okay, we've done that trip with you now. What do you do in Dorset? What do you do in Surrey? Where can we go riding in Scotland? So we're basically helping people explore the new areas, because that's what outdoor activity does. Hiking, any form of adventure, you can't wait for the next one. It doesn't have to be super extreme. It doesn't always have to be about jumps or mountains. It's just about, where can you take me next, or where can we ride our bikes next? So that's the three examples, I suppose. The people that are time poor and just want to trust and come along for a sociable day out, and maximize their time and the money they've spent on their kit, as in their bike. And there's other examples of Steve and Sonia, definitely.
This is the great thing, is that, first of all, I keep saying that before you turn to a doctor for help, what are you doing yourself to help yourself? And so those two examples in particular are two people that have taken action in doing something themselves, like you say, and they've got on their bike, they've taken action, and then that's led them to obviously coming across you and your journey and your business, and then they've joined that. And then, like you say, you do it once, you build momentum and enthusiasm to do it again and again. And then before you know it, a year down the line, you've completely transformed your physical health, mental health. So it's really...
the human body's amazing. It doesn't matter what you put it through. You can almost reverse anything, or you definitely can improve the situation, can't you?
Yeah.
Again, I heard something, I think it was early this year. I think it was on a radio station. The person said, the guru said, all the time you've got a breath in your body, you can improve your health. Yeah.
Fantastic.
There we go.
Well, there you go, Sean. You've got your IKIGAI. You've got something you enjoy, something you're good at, and something that's benefiting the world and other people, in helping them. You're giving them a platform, really, aren't you, to really get their teeth into something and improve their health. So where can people find you? What's your website?
marmalademtb.com.
Marmalade MTV.
MTB. So
MTB.
Yeah, my MTB, which is the acronym for abbreviation. I can never get those two.
I'll put a link to it in the YouTube video. I'll put a link to the website in the comments.
Yes, thank you. That'd be much appreciated, and can be found on Facebook, Instagram, and X, of course.
Okay, what do they search for on Facebook, on the socials? Marmalade MTB.
Yeah, the handle is the same across all the channels. So consistency is key, apparently.
Well, there you go. So if anybody wants to take action on their own health and not necessarily rely on doctors or other people, take action first. Obviously, I'm not condoning having to go to the doctors for any medication, but take action yourself first. And if you want something different, you know where to go.
Certainly do. Yeah. Thank you very much. And
thanks for coming on, Sean. Just one last thing I'd like to ask. Your golden rule, I always ask this. What's one last piece of advice, your golden rule, that you'd like to share with the listeners for them to take away from this episode?
It's all about passion. You've got to follow the passion. And the worst thing that's ever going to happen to anyone, and hopefully it's a long time off for anyone, but the worst thing that's ever going to happen to you in this world is you're going to die. So get out there and give something a go. Take a chance. Follow your passion. It doesn't work. Like I said, what's the worst that can happen?
Yeah, like we said earlier, kicking down those doors and walking through the opportunities and thinking, what's the worst that can possibly happen?
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah. You will find a lot more fun on the journey if you just walk through the door that's got passion written all over it.
Yeah. And that passion is important, because if you have a passion, obviously something you really enjoy and you feel like that's just what you should do, that's like the first part of that IKIGAI I was just talking about, making it something that you enjoy. If you've got a passion, I think that's going to drive you to achieve, isn't it?
Yeah. It's look at yourself, see what you're passionate about. What's your thing? What's your unique skill? What's your unique take on the world? Whatever, it doesn't always have to be. You don't have to manufacture something. You don't have to create anything. It can just be a skill, can't it? It can be a passion, it can be a hobby, and put that unique style and twist on it.
Brilliant. Well, it's been a great chat with you, Sean, and I'm sure that anyone listening will take loads. There's loads of key points that we've discussed there, loads of key lessons that we can all take from this chat, and we can apply it in our own lives to improve ourselves. And that's what it's all about, isn't it? It's just taking inspirational stories from everyday people like ourselves, applying it in our lives, and taking that to improve. When we improve ourselves, we improve our life. So thank you very much, Sean, for coming on, mate.
No problem at all. And it's been a real honour, and it's been a great hour or so of good conversation. And thank you for inviting us along. And I wish you, Harry, with this podcast, all the best.
Thanks, mate, and you too. All the best with your business and helping others.
Thank you very much.
And hope you've settled in with the move now as well.
Almost, yes, getting there.
All day the action.
That's it. Little bit by bit.
All right, Sean. All the best, mate. Stay in touch.
Will do. Cheers, Harry. Thank you very much.
Care.
Cheers, mate. Bye-bye.
Bye.